the culture in Israel versus the culture in Gaza. I mean the culture, not just Hamas, the culture. You can't build hundreds of miles of underground tunnels big enough for small subway cars without the population knowing about it. It's an impossibility. And this is really kind of a heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. So let's take a look. This is from the Daily Mail a little while ago. It's about an IDF dog named Mickey. We'll get into the other stuff, but first this. Go.
They called us and said, "Hi, Professor Efrati, we have a dog that was injured. We want to treat her in the channel." I told them at the beginning, I said, "We are not treating dogs." And then they say, no, this is a special dog. It happens in Gaza. I said, okay, now we are listening.
Mikey, the Alsatian, was just weeks away from completing her military service when she was hit by a Hamas grenade and suffered catastrophic injuries in Gaza. The search and rescue dog in Israel's elite Oketz Special Forces unit suffered horrific wounds to her face, body and legs. Veterinary surgeons operated to remove an eye and treat shrapnel in her ears, pneumonia in her lungs and a broken leg, but the outlook was bleak.
Now let's stop a minute. Remember that video a couple of months ago now where one of the Hamas Nazi terrorists shot that dog with his tail wagging? Did you see this? The dog obviously doesn't know what's going on. He's coming up to the terrorist to say hi. And he kills it, shoots it 3 times. The first shot, the dog is sort of doing that. The second shot, and then the third shot. They're sick bastards. I don't even call them animals. This is an animal here. It's just unbelievable. Now compare that to what the Israelis are doing with this dog. Maximum medical treatment to try and save it. They have to remove the eye. He has shrapnel in his ear from the grenade. He had pneumonia. He lost a leg. So many other things. His face was horribly disfigured. And they saved the dog. That's why this moral equivalency in the media makes me sick to my stomach. Go.
Damage sustained to her brain meant Mikey would never walk again, and it was feared she may not even live. But now, the 9-year-old Alsatian has made a miraculous recovery after becoming the first dog in the world to receive hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
She was exposed to a significant blast. She had injury in her eyes, in her leg, as you can see, and in the brain she also have remnant of the explosion in the brain. So when she came, she was non-responding. Actually, there was a threat to her life. That's how she came to the veterinary hospital, okay? And they called us and said, "Hi, Professor Efrati, we have a dog that was injured. We want to treat her in the channel." I told them at the beginning, I said, "We are not treating dogs." And then they say, no, this is a special dog. It happens in Gaza. I said, okay, now we are listening.
Since she was a puppy, Mikey had served with the Oketz unit, an independent canine special forces unit in the Israeli Defense Forces. It comprises of dogs that specialize in attacking, tracking, or sniffing out enemy munitions. Mikey was an explosives detonator dog who was sent in to scan buildings for traps before Israeli forces enter. She was working with her handler to root out Hamas deep in Gaza when a terrorist threw a grenade which blew up in her face. Mikey was evacuated by helicopter and rushed to a veterinary hospital on November the 12th. But after 2 weeks of traditional treatment, the vets ran out of options and her commanders called up Professor Efrati. He has pioneered the use of hyperbaric oxygen therapy to treat blast wounds in soldiers. It works by flooding the blood with oxygen, allowing it to bypass damaged blood vessels and induce stem cells to grow.
We are using the cutting-edge technology or the hyperbaric oxygen therapy protocol that we are using for soldiers with brain injuries. And this is the research that we are doing the last 20 years. And Mikey, she's improving significantly. As you saw her now, she can walk, okay? She can understand what's going on around. She can react, okay? And this is even better than what we have thought. And what's interesting in her case, I don't know if it will happen to additional dogs that we will treat. If we will treat, probably we will again, because the results are so amazing, is that it's like a fast forward with regard to the reaction to the treatment as what happened in humans.
Wow.
So for example, in each session that she gets, it's like 5 sessions in humans, the amazing progress that she made.
Mikey has made significant progress after just a few weeks of treatment, and it's hoped that she will continue to improve with a further 2 months of oxygen therapy. For Professor Efrati, a recovery is just as important as any other soldier that has served their country.
The best of the best treatment that we are giving to any soldier that is injured during the battlefield. Okay, that's the way we are in Israel. We want to give the best to our soldiers, and Mikey, she's one of our soldiers.
Now, did you hear that? When you see, if you do, and I post a lot of them on my social sites, the photographs of these young IDF soldiers, these young men who are dying for their country. Most of you understand this. They're not celebrating, that is, their families, their death, they're going to see 72 virgins or whatever the story is. They are mourning. They're mourning the death of a son, a father, a brother, you name it, in a war they didn't start. And they're under enormous pressure from Biden and the Democrats. They're under enormous pressure from this Marxist piece of shit, and I'll say it, Bernie Sanders and the others, to give up, to negotiate a ceasefire with an enemy that says they're never going to stop. It seems to me that the lives of the Israelis just are not as important to the Democrats, to the Marxists, to the rest, as everybody else's life. And then look at this. The treatment of a dog that was in the war effort. You heard what the surgeon said. And I will tell you more. When I was in Israel, last time or the time before, I've only been there 3 or 4 times my whole life, starting when I was 60. There was a hospital. I don't remember if it was on the northern border. I think it was on the northern border with Syria or near Syria. And the director of the hospital took us through all kinds of cutting edge and so forth. And he made it abundantly clear, and he said it more than once. Anybody who walks through that door who needs help gets help. And so we said, so people come in from Syria, because they have no real medical care there, and they're being murdered and slaughtered by their own government. You give them help? He said, yes, no questions asked. And when you go through that hospital, or any hospital, they're not using it as a bunker. They're not using it to hide terrorists, militia of any kind. They're not using it to hide weapons. They're using it to help human beings. So when you look at that culture, the culture in Israel versus the culture in Gaza, I mean the culture, not just Hamas, the culture. You can't build hundreds of miles of underground tunnels big enough for small subway cars without the population knowing about it. It's an impossibility. And without the population helping, it's an impossibility. And the surveys tell us this. The surveys out of Judea and Samaria, the surveys out of Gaza tell us over 85% of the quote-unquote peaceful citizens support Hamas and would vote for Hamas again. Then they did another survey that came out last week that didn't get the attention it deserved, of course. In all Arab countries, almost 70% supported what happened on October 7th. And in Judea and Samaria, which Israel's enemies call the West Bank, the survey overwhelming that if there was a vote today for a new country and a new government, that's what Biden and Sanders want to give them. Right there, the ancestral homes of the Jews, Hamas would win. So would Islamic Jihad. They'd win, hands down. Hands down. It's a whole culture. And that culture now has been imported into our own country through student visas, visas generally. imported into our country through birthright citizenship, imported into our country.
For more, sign up for Levin TV.